I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Mystical Block. So, me and Greg here have been thinking, how are we going to farm Nether Stars? Nether Stars are going to be an integral part of all of the late game crafting, so getting that set up as soon as we can is also going to be incredibly nice. Now, there's a couple of routes that are going to be doable, but some routes can be done sooner than others, and I think there's some progression that we can do that is actually going to benefit us in the long run when it comes to our Nether Star production. And that is, first, using hostile neural networks to go ahead and get the Nether Stars produced, because later on we're going to actually need more Nether Stars to produce more Nether Stars. Yeah, I know, it sounds just as crazy as it seems, but I want to also, after we get our first initial Nether Stars cleaned up and we get our withers killed and stuff like that, we should be able to take this area and then convert it into an area that we're going to set up the farms in, but also it's going to help with us moving our seed reprocessors. So I want to also have the reprocessing going under this island here, and then I want to start working on how I'm going to format the top of these islands, because the top of these islands are going to have machines on them as well, but they're not just going to be plain Jane islands. I'm planning on building some sort of castle-esque structures on top of them. So with hostile neural networks, to be able to get into this mod, well, we're going to have to kill the withers by hand. And to do this, we need a special weapon. So Project E has us covered when it comes to this special weapon. That is the red katar. This thing is incredibly powerful and can literally one-shot the wither simply by using a hotkey that activates its AoE mode. But let's go ahead and craft up this weapon. And it isn't that expensive, just requires some diamonds, some dark matter, and red matter. So now that we have this thing, we need to figure out how to use it. Now, the best way to test this out is I always have trouble figuring out exactly what hotkey it is. We need to be near some mobs. So I'm near my mob farm, and we should be able to one-shot these. But first, we need to hit V to charge up the sword. So we can hit it multiple times, and then you can hold Shift V to uncharge this. This is going to change the actual strength of the abilities that this thing has. And it doesn't cost anything to increase it. Now, I think by default, this is set to slay hostile mobs, and it is going to be, for me, I have it assigned to F, but for you, you may need to go into your options, controls, and Project E, hit category, and then set your extra functions key. For me, I have it set to F, and that appears to be the key that allows me to one-shot the hostile mobs, as you just seen. It's pretty powerful, incredibly powerful for fighting, as you can see, the wither, because it will one-shot the wither after it's gone through its destruction phase. So now for the hostile neural networks part of this, that means I need to actually make this model framework. So this is going to require quite a bit, but most of these things are EMCable, which is going to make things much more smooth in the production of them. But this is the basic framework. Now, I should be able to go ahead and make a model that will look like this after I've killed it. We can make a data learner, and we need to put this inside the framework once we've right-clicked the entity, which will be the wither. So we need some skulls, wither skeleton skulls, and some soul sand, and we should be able to do this inside of our wither killing chamber that we've set up. Oh boy, this is going to get kind of fun. So let's go ahead and do this. All we have to do is simply place in the wither, and as soon as it spawns in, we can go ahead and right-click this. So now we have the data model saved, and I'm going to put it inside of the learner and put this in my offhand so we can kind of see it in the top left. And then I should be able to just simply hit F, and that has now killed this wither. Incredibly easy. Yes, this mod is powerful, as you can see. Now, the thing that I need to do is summon in a few more, because I need to kill 5 more in order to get at least the basic version of this model. And then the models will teach themselves as they run through this process. So, and just like this, there we go. I have the last one done. and we're ready to go. By the way, this seems to drop a few scrolls that are pretty interesting. And this is why I said early on, Coral Tombstone is kind of more than just a Graves mod. It does have a lot of functionality, but we do have now 6 Nether stars, tons of these division sigils. And these things, by the way, are used in this extra utilities rebirth mod in order to make these items. It's mostly used for making unstable ingots, which are supposed to be able to explode in your inventory. It does appear, though, these are particularly stable versions. So they do not explode, which is totally different than the way this actually used to work in the past, which I've recently done. We recently played with a mod that added that functionality back in, and that was a super nostalgia trip by placing and like sacrificing an animal overside of an enchanting table surrounded by redstone at midnight, right when the moon was right up there. Oh man, what a nostalgia trip. Now, as you can see in our data model, it is set to basic model, and we can now start to increase this by just putting it in the machine. It's going to produce 2 different things. It can produce a prediction, or it can produce this right here, generalized ender predictions, or it can produce the actual wither predictions. Now, depending on its tier, depends on during its stretch of time, it will determine whether or not it will actually drop the actual wither prediction. This is what's going to give us a Nether star. Now, once it hits self-aware, which will take it a little bit of time to do if we let the machine do it, or we can just keep killing these withers by hand, and that will increase it as well. But if we just let it run, it should be able to get there before long, and it'll eventually be self-aware. Now, it does take a bit of power for this, so do not expect this to be cheap. This is going to cost some significant power. Specifically for the powerful boss mobs, these are the ones that cost a lot of power to keep running. So now I'm going to clean up this area. I'm going to get it looking nice and ready. And we're going to set up some automation for this mod and hopefully get some refined storage integrated into this. So now I'm thinking about how I'm going to set up the simulation chamber and the loot fabricator, because these 2 machines work kind of interestingly. So they don't automatically send the stuff to the loot fabricator. And because they can also produce 2 different things, we want to make sure that we route one of those things into our refined storage system and make sure we send the other, which is going to be the prediction, into the actual loot fabricator. Now, if I was trying to make like a messy sort of setup and just had the machines placed all over the place, it would be easily done through just refined storage. But of course, me being ChosenArchitect and me wanting to make this look really nice and clean, I think my best bet is to probably use modular routers and get even more advanced than our last episode, where in this particular setup, we're actually going to hide everything into the walls and make this super duper clean. Now to set this up, I'm going to, for the first one, I'm going to go ahead and place in our simulation chamber. Now I'm going to need access to the top and bottom of this particular machine. And here in a moment, we can probably go ahead and break this once we start working on the loot fabricator. But I need to be able to select the specific tops and bottoms, as those sides do matter for this machine. Now, much like the other setup that we use for the reprocessor, I need a way of getting energy. So I have myself a point back here, and then on this particular machine, we'll put the energy upgrades in and make sure we put a stack of them, put some speed upgrades in, and then we need to set up our actual energy distribution module. Now, both of these machines do need some power, so I'm gonna go ahead and place both of them and go ahead and get both of them selected. Now, I can add more of these down the road if we go ahead and start adding more to this this wall here. So if I put this in, now these should be receiving power, and quite a bit of power. So this is basically done, but we can actually use this modular router for another task. And that is going to be also sending the items that are going to be needed for this to actually run. Now this mod does require, these prediction matrices, which I call them basic prediction matrices. And these are EMCable. So it's going to be pretty easy for us to just simply craft them. Make sure we add them to our EMC list like so. And then we're just going to click this onto here to set this item to allow it to be extracted from. And so with that, we can go back into modular routers, and I can just I'm going to do actually for this a basic cinder mod, or a basic puller module. I believe I have a basic puller. That way I can also show you how the basic tier works. So with a basic puller module, when we open this up, we can actually select the side of machine that we wanted to pull from. This is not going to be wireless. And since it is connected directly to this, we can just simply tell it what side of the machine to pull from, and it will do that. So this will start to pull those matrices in, as you can see right here. But this is where we want the wireless. So we want a distribution module because we want to eventually be able to send to more of these. So let's get the sender and start to send from this buffer. It's really easy to kind of take a look at this and go, okay, what are we interacting with? And that is the buffer. So we always need to keep the buffer in mind. In this particular case, the buffer is storing up our predictions. And so now we need to send those predictions outward. And so on this, I'm just going to send it to the top of this machine. So I should be able to right click this. I believe the distribution module, we need to be transferring out of the router. Hopefully it will let us do that. Doesn't seem like it's letting me interact. Okay, let me interact with the face there. There we go. Now we're interacting. Apparently I can't do it while I'm in flight. So that's kind of interesting. So there we go. So we have the top interacted with, which is where I want to send this to. And so as soon as I put this in here, it should send those into the machine, or at least so I hope it will. We might do, it might not actually interact with the top. We actually might need to send this to something like the face and not the top of the machine. It's a little bit of working around to try and figure out exactly where this likes. Oh, I don't think it'll actually send until we have the actual prediction inside there, right? No, this won't let me put anything in. So the top actually might be correct. Let me go ahead and retry that. There we go. We have the top selected. Put this back in. And now let's put our model in here. That's what it's missing. It's actually missing the data model. So as soon as we put that in, there we go. Now it starts to fill up. And that's perfect. So that way we can add into the future. And I'm sort of future-proofing this so we can make more of these if need be. But you can see it's loading through, it's doing its process, and you can see the prediction failed on this particular version. But the model accuracy starts to go up. And so once this hits 100%, it will move up to the next tier. But it did produce this generalized ender prediction. So these are two things that we're going to want to pull out of this machine, and we're going to want to send them to different locations. So now this is where I'm going to set up multiple modular routers, and we can actually get into filtering. So as of right now, we don't have a prediction that has started yet. So let's go ahead and start working on just grabbing the basic ender predictions. So this is where we actually need to break this machine for now. And we are going to need to set up and detect the bottom of this. So I'm going to work with this particular modular router. This is going to be the one that grabs these and is going to place them into a barrel. We can just use this as a buffer chest for right now, but we want it to place the actual generalized predictions into this barrel down here. And so let's go ahead and do that. So with modular routers, we can get in, this is pretty straightforward, but we're going to make sure we use another distributor module, except this one is going to be into this transfer into router mode. Now with this, we have a filter over here that we can actually filter out specific items, and that we can say only by whitelisting, only pull out generalized ender predictions here. And if we put that in here, that should, once we add some speed upgrades, it should only pull out of this machine once we click the bottom, and it should only pull out those predictions. And now we just need a sender module to be able to send to the chest below. And for this, we can just use a basic version. We'll just say send down. And so with that, it's going to send those into this chest. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And then anything that goes into this chest, we can just simply send into our refined storage network and just have an importer accepting those things. So now to make this look even cleaner, I went ahead and moved this into the center here. And this also is going to allow me to work on this because I think if you break this machine, for some reason, it doesn't seem like it redetects the fact that it exists here, and you have to reconfigure the sides. At least that's what it seemed like whenever I just tested that. So that means I'm going to leave a gap here. That way I can still access the top and bottom of the machine. And we need to now place in our loot fabricator. So the loot fabricator we should be able to interact with a couple of different routers here. This particular router is going to interact with the insertion and extraction of the very specific item that's going to be generated here. So let's go ahead and make a puller upgrade, and we're going to need an MK2 version of this. Well, actually, let's use a distributor as well. So that way, if we set up more of these simulation chambers, which is all we're going to need is just more simulation chambers, because this will be fast enough on its own, we should be able to get this to work. Also, I need to add this to the power. There we go. So now that should be receiving power. Perfect. Okay, so the distributor module, we need to switch this yet again to the pulling version. And this one is going to say, hey, we need to pull out wither predictions. And we should be able to find them down here. So we have wither skeletons and wither. We should be able to pull this over here, make sure to set it to whitelist. And now when we click on the bottom here, this one can interact. And if we do receive one of those, it will pull it out of that slot, which should allow us to now take that and send it to the top of this fabricator. So this is where we just need a regular sender MK2, and we'll shift click onto the top of this. And now that should send back and forth. We just get some speed upgrades. I don't think we need stack upgrades or anything like that, but we just need those to go in here. Now, once we actually get a prediction, which as of right now, it is now at 14% model accuracy, which that'll only increase with time, giving us a higher chance of getting the prediction. We then need to actually select what this prediction is going to make. So we have to get one of those at least first before we can start doing that. But we can also go ahead and say, hey, how are we going to pull out of this machine? And because this is going to be right on top of this machine, we can just use a puller. So we can just do a basic puller upgrade as well. Get MK1, and we'll just say pull from the top. And then all of this can go in here, and this technically is fully automated. The only thing we need to wait on is for a prediction to be made. And there it is. There's our prediction. So all we have to do is select this, and now Nether stars should be made. And that should send, once the Nether star is done, it's going to send it down here. We technically now have Nether star automation pretty much done, but we don't have this cleaned up yet. We need to make this look a bit cleaner. And that's where these upgrades for modular routers is going to come into play. We need camouflage upgrades. So camouflage upgrades are pretty darn cool, as they allow us to disguise our modular router machines. And so all we have to do is click on the stone, for example, to make it look like stone. And then when we place the upgrade in here, the modular router now takes on the stone appearance. And so there we go. We now have this completely camouflaged, and it looks just like it's embedded in stone. And I don't think it gets any cleaner looking than that. These two machines are essentially just running, and they don't look like anything's connected to them. Now, of course, I think to make this even cleaner looking, let's go ahead and set this puller upgrade on the first one, set this to down, and then place this on the down here. And then we'll make sure to set what material it's going to be producing. And now it's going to be even cleaner because we won't even have those blocks interacting. Now all I need is an importer, and we should be golden here. So I just got to get the importer placed in on the bottom of this, and that's going to make sure to send all of these items back into our refined storage network. Now, yes, I know that all may seem kind of complicated for what could be a very simple pipe setup, but it's not about that. It's about how clean I like to make things look. So if that's something you like, of course, clicking that subscribe button wouldn't be a bad idea, as I tend to try and make things very much like this. Now, at this point, I want to get all of this setup moved down into here. Like I said, I wanted to build something up on top, so I can't have this here. Now, the way I'm going to set these up is so that way they support this distribution module. It does seem like the distribution module can only do a max of 8 items. As you can see, a target of 0 of 8, meaning that I can only have 8 different things connected to a single distribution module. However, we can have multiple distribution modules. So what I want to do is I want to have them set up like this and have 10 on this side and 10 on this side. That'll be a total of 20 reprocessors, and we can just use multiple distribution modules inside of a single modular router, and they will all simultaneously work, or at least in theory, that should work. Now, a cool thing is the crafter itself maintains its inventory and maintains all of its settings. So if you move it, it's going to keep all of its information. Oh, that is so nice, since I don't want to have to go through and redo all of that information. Now, I think for this, I might be able to utilize this particular modular router, which is already down here that we use for the simulation chamber, to be able to power all of these. Now, this, like I said, does have a limit of 3. So what I'm thinking is a limit of 8. What we should be able to do is go ahead and set the max that we can set for this, which is 8. As you can see, we can't do any more. And then go ahead and move to the next one until this hits its max. And then we use another card. So all of these should be able to work by going inside of this machine right here. And so if we get them all in there, as you can see, they are all filled with power. Hopefully this can sustain the power. As I did see it dip there, I'm hoping that it can sustain. Oh, and it doesn't look like these are receiving any power. Only the first set seems to be receiving power. That's kind of strange. I wonder why that's the case. Oh, it's out of range. Oh, okay. So for these, we can just simply put range upgrades in them. And of course, we've used these before. You put the range upgrades in, and as you can see, they will go up to the maximum. However, I think a range of like 8 blocks in each of these is going to be more than enough to make sure it can reach those blocks. So we put 8 of these in here, and now it should work. So put that there. Of course, the power is going to completely drain out, but we can see all of the power now flooding into these, judging by these lasers. Hopefully this is enough to sustain. If not, we may have to go with more modular routers, or we could just simply put points on the back of these. Now, the same thing goes for how we're going to send to these machines and how we're going to receive from these machines. So these are going to be the senders, and we've already done this all before. So the distribution right here is going to send to the top, and then these are going to connect to the bottom. Of course, I'm going to do it the exact same way, as they all have a limit of 8 max on these. So just like we have set up before, I have a puller, just tier 1, that's just pulling straight from this with all the seeds and some stack upgrades. And so we should be able to put these here, and that should distribute the items, hopefully, to the seed reprocessor. Oh, actually, I have the wrong ones. These are the ones that pull. These are the ones that should start sending the items. And you're going to see lasers shooting all over the place, because we're gonna have to shut that feature off. So we'll be able to hopefully get that done here momentarily. So as you can see, everything got filled with seeds and everything reprocessed, but now we need to pull out. And that's where this one is going to come into play. And so we can put the stack upgrades and upgrades in here, and that is going to pull out of here, but then we need to send to the crafter now. And so that is where our sender MK2 is going to come into play. And we should be able to now send everything to it, which is going to cause lasers to go everywhere. Now, this also does not have power. So let's take our distribution card, re-add another thing to it. And there we go. That is now receiving power and is now crafting everything. I just don't think it's enough power because it doesn't seem to be filling up. We might want to put a point on this. So just by judging from all of these machines, I now see that this is going to be too much for this one crafter. So we are going to need to set up, I believe, multiple crafters in order for this to work faster and more effectively, which means we're probably going to need to change up how we do this. Maybe have a modular router per 8 distributors. So I went ahead and just added another crafter. This is still not able to keep up with it fully, but I do have 2 sender modules that are going over here. What I definitely need to do is just split this up. I think these crafters can handle it. Well, maybe. This one needs to be put in fast mode. Then it might actually pull from all of them. It is very close to pulling from all of them with just 2 here. But you can see this is running incredibly fast. I have 2 sender modules per crafter. And this is crafting Insanium essence really, really fast now. And they're both producing it at this pace. So Yeah, I think at this point, this should be pretty good, at least while we start working on other things. We can have this importing in, make sure to get some speed upgrades on there, just like so, and then I'll get my cables hooked up. And we should have, technically, this all set up and automated and producing Insanium at a insane rate. Yes, this is pretty darn cool. Now, if you want to get rid of the light show, I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm pretty sure this is just as simple as putting the max muffler upgrades in here. Now, by default, it will remove some sounds. You can see right here with 2, it removes the lasers there. When it's in its max form, it's going to stop. This one will be a good one to kind of demonstrate. If you had sounds being produced by the machine, this would stop it with the first one. The next one, as you can see, it does remove all of the lasers and stuff like that as well. And unfortunately, you can't have the items going without the lasers, I don't think. So it is definitely worth getting these put in here because the idea is to make this clean looking. It's still functioning, but clean looking. And I don't really want the items shooting all over the place or lasers just firing everywhere. So I also went ahead and just took one of the 8 that was maxed out with 8, and I moved it over to here. And it does seem like now it is evenly dividing everything perfectly because this does end up stopping every now and then, which means these are completely empty. So that is beautiful. I don't know if they're empty because of the seeds not getting restocked, but either way, it doesn't really matter. It's all set to round robin. So it's going to try and round robin this whole thing. Oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful looking and simple and actually able to be covered up. And you wouldn't even know that anything was crazy going on here, even though it definitely is. So I just done another test and we basically went from making 20 or making 1 of the Insanium essence every 20 seconds to now producing 1 every 1.5 seconds roughly. That is a huge upgrade. Now, the only major problem with this particular setup is it's power hungry. And well, we only produce power during the day, which means we run out at night. So I think next episode, we definitely need to beef up our power. And that means we're probably going to be getting into a mod that allows us to make massive power gains and eventually lead us into creative power, which will be amazing. So with that, I hope you learned something new today, and particularly about modular routers, as I feel like that mod is just super underrated. Like, it is an insane powerful mod. So guys, if you did enjoy, of course, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, so you can make Greg here a happy little fox. I do appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Give this video a thumbs up, and it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's video. And that amazing thanks is going to go to NeoFast FTL. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord. Become an amazing Discord premium member and supporting this channel in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I thank you so very much for watching. I'll see you, of course, in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!